think about a bucket and you think about filling it with stress, nutrient deficiencies, gut issues, different things like that. And then you add in a high histamine food. If that bucket's pretty full with all the other stuff, you're going to have a really hard time eating high histamine foods. So what we want to do is we want to figure out what's filling up our bucket, empty the bucket as best we can, and then you're able to start eating foods that have higher histamine levels, and you can break it down easier and tolerate it better.
So we autistics feel stressed very quickly just by leaving the house. So you may develop a histamine intolerance when you are autistic, in particular if you are female. So if you are histamine intolerant, it is crucial to understand your menstrual cycle, know your high estrogen peaks. So there are also dietary disabilities. Those can be the symptoms you have after eating a certain high histamine food. So finally, I have identified my migraine cause because it absolutely correlates with my menstrual cycle. This is absolutely the case for me, and I am experimenting with the ancestral health supplement beef kidney that has a lot of DAO. Not the cheapest product, but I think this is definitely better than taking ibuprofen for migraine pain.
This is an ibuprofen. It's one of many types of non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, or NSAIDs. Drugs like this actually go by many names, but you probably know them best as ibuprofen, aspirin, or simply over-the-counter painkillers. Chances are you've taken one of these pills at some point to get rid of a nagging headache, to ease some mild discomfort, or even to reduce a fever. And like many of my patients, when they first come to see me, it's quite possible you've even been using NSAIDs on a regular basis to relieve chronic pain. But like I tell them, if you really knew what these painkillers are doing to your body, you might think twice before taking another one.
Every time I eat some food that is high in histamine, I get a migraine, such as bacon and bone broth.
Foods in terms of nutrients, so like nutrient-dense foods that you would recommend to women in particular? Because I know men and women have different nutrient demands. What are some of the ones that you're like, hey, these are probably some foods you should be eating?
Okay, so here's the problem. So this is where it's so individualized.
Oh, I love that answer. Okay.
So let's take an avocado for a perfect example,
Yes.
right? It's a very nutrient dense food. But am I going to tell my histamine intolerant patients to eat it? No way, because it's one of the highest, histamine producing foods. So it's hard to say that. It's really hard to answer that. Definitely organ meats are really, really nutrient dense. So that's something that most people can tolerate, more, like real organ meat, not taking it in like a pill form. And mostly just because of the way it's prepared, and like if it's frozen and then you make it, but to me it doesn't taste good. So like a lot of people aren't going to eat that. If you're a histamine intolerant patient, you're going to take out avocado, you're going to take out fermented foods, you're going to take out citrus fruits, tomatoes, that type of thing.
Bacon.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Meats, like in anything aged. Bone broth. Oh my gosh, like this bone broth craze. You give that to a histamine intolerant person, they're going to feel like crap.
And also I used to do the pemmican, but it appears that even the dehydration process is not suited for my body. I get a reaction as well. So I get the migraines. Sometimes there is bloating, diarrhea, and even muscle pain, runny nose.
Exposed to these chemicals all the time, and they not only can really congest your liver, but they start to change your hormones, like your sex hormones.
Well, we just did an episode actually on how to raise testosterone, and before we did the episode, we were doing some research, and there were articles, and these were by scientists, and there's studies supporting them, talking about how, because I don't know if you're familiar with this, but men's testosterone levels have been dropping pretty consistently for the last 4 or 5 decades.
Yeah.
This is a documented thing. And one of the theories is our exposure to these, what are called xenoestrogens, found in plastics and whatnot.
Yep.
Could you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, so it's in plastics, it's in your beauty care, which men use too, like putting on lotion. Our skin is our biggest organ. And so what I'm seeing with men is their testosterone is going down their estrogen pathway. So their testosterone is low and their estrogen is getting higher. So it's in my opinion, it's because of all the things that they're putting in our products that are really, and in our food, like chemicals in our food. And like I said, like you're touching something as simple as a receipt, and it's just getting into our skin, which is affecting our endocrine system, and it's really changing hormones for men and women.
What kind of changes are you seeing in women's hormones?
I see a lot of women getting either estrogen dominance, which leads to a lot of things, with histamine and with thyroid. The estrogen being high causes so many issues. And then you have on the other side PCOS, which is polycystic ovarian syndrome, and women are getting really high testosterone, and then they're feeling aggressive. They're getting hair like men. They're, everything's kind of changing. Their personalities are changing. They're having mood swings, and they're gaining weight, and they just don't feel like themselves. They don't even feel like feminine anymore. So it can really swing both ways, and it just really depends on what's going on in there.
So many people use spinach in their daily smoothies, and spinach is so bad. It's not a healthy food at all. It's very high in oxalates. If you have salicylate intolerance, then there is that problem. And then if you are intolerant in sulfur and histamines, so don't eat that. People need to be aware of the oxalate issue. So many are not aware of it, especially in the paleo community. They use such high oxalate foods. It's crazy. They think they are eating healthy, but they are poisoning themselves. So if you are a carnivore, you are really quite safe in terms of oxalate toxicity, luckily. But those who are eating plants, they really have to be careful that they eat only plants that are low in oxalate. Since this is a video about histamine intolerance, back to that topic. Stress. This is really an issue in our society. This is a very good video as well.
Problems that you identify as histamine intolerance. And of course, many people are very familiar with antihistamines. And so in both conditions, we're looking at histamine as the enemy. Somehow we've got to tame this factor that's causing such grief in the body. But first of all, let's just look at histamine for a minute, because we really couldn't live without it. And that is an important start to see how we are going to deal with the problems associated with histamine. Now, histamine is a natural compound. It plays a number of important roles in the human body. And first of all, it is an important neurotransmitter. It's very important in brain and central nervous system functioning. It acts by conveying signals between nerve cells. Without it, we would not be able to, our brains simply wouldn't function as they do. Secondly, it's important in digestion. This is a fact that many people don't recognize, but it actually triggers the release of gastric acid in the stomach, and that's the start of protein digestion. Without that, protein would be inadequately digested as it passes through the digestive tract and end up in the colon where it gets fermented. So histamine is a key factor there. And very importantly, it's an essential component of immunological protection. In fact, it's a key mediator in defending the body from threats such as infection, trauma, or anything that actually is going to compromise the body's health. So looking at all of those wonderful things that histamine does, why is it such a problem for so many people? It really only becomes a problem when it is present in such quantities that are in excess of the body's requirements. It's then that we see the real problems of excess histamine in the sense of intolerance, or as we see very often, the effects of allergy. Now, histamine is a very important agent in food allergy of any type, in fact. It is an inflammatory mediator that is actually released from mast cells. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more in a minute. And these mediators are responsible for the symptoms of allergy. Now, because it's such an important mediator, it is clinically very difficult to distinguish it from food allergy. And so many people think they have food allergy, they go to their allergist, they have all the allergy tests, and everything comes back negative. And so everyone is perplexed. Well, I've got all these symptoms. I know that I eat food and I get a reaction, and yet you're telling me that I have no food allergy. And so often people are directed to various specialists, and so often in my practice I've seen patients told that it's all in your head, go and live with it kind of thing. And they become very distressed. They start looking for answers in all sorts of places. But fortunately, now, due to a lot more research which is being undertaken in various parts of the world, histamine sensitivity is being recognized.
The main issue for me is indeed migraines, and I am glad I could identify the cause of it. But you may have a lot of other symptoms, and you may not know that this is a histamine intolerance issue. So those are my symptoms. And there is one more, and I wasn't aware this could be a histamine issue as well, and that's exercise intolerance. I listened to this the other day, and then it clicked finally why I had such troubles when I was exercising too much, feeling tired, getting a migraine, muscle pain, which is not the same as feeling sore. It's really pain. It's different from soreness. And also the red head. After running, really, I looked like a tomato. And that lasted about an hour. And then slowly that red color vanished. But my head was all hot, and probably that's why I got the migraines too. So she really has all the material put together about histamine intolerance, and it's great to check out her book and her videos.
Hey guys, okay, so I've gotten a lot of questions about histamine intolerance and exercise intolerance. So I think that, you know, a lot of times people have developed exercise intolerance, and you've seen me talk about that, and it can be due to histamine intolerance, or it can be also due to adrenal issues. So I want to kind of differentiate between the two. So if you have been an athlete and you've been working out really hard and you've always been able to do it, and then suddenly you can't do the same type of exercise that you once could, but you're just getting like really fatigued after, and that's pretty much your only symptom, that's probably an adrenal issue. If you're getting symptoms where you're getting itchy after exercise, you're feeling really hot, you're getting dizzy, if you notice your face turns red and it takes a while for it to come back down to your normal color, just extreme fatigue where you literally like have to go sit in your car for a while afterwards, that is usually due to histamine intolerance. So I've said this before, and I'll say it again, you don't want to not work out, but you have to do a different type of intensity of exercise. So someone asked me, you know, what exact exercise do I do? And there's no exact exercise that really you should do. It's just something less. So whether it's walking or swimming or biking, or, you know, I've posted before about how I love the stationary bike because you're indoors and, like, God forbid you got really dizzy, you could just get off the bike and sit on the floor. You know, if you're out running and you feel like that, you kind of get stuck. So something like that, yoga, but not hot yoga. That's really key because heat is one of the things that makes you release the most histamine in your body. So yoga, Pilates, stuff like that. And if you're doing yoga and Pilates and you're still feeling like that, you probably just really need to rest, and you need to really start working on getting the histamine levels in your body lower. So how do you do that? Well, you lower the foods that are high in histamine, which is exactly what my whole book, the 4-Phase Histamine Reset Plan, is about. It tells you exactly, like, the highest histamine foods, and then foods that may be high in histamine or may cause a problem and they may not. We kind of go through phases in that. But really reducing those foods while you're looking for the underlying cause of the intolerance. And then once you can fix that underlying cause of the intolerance, then you can usually start to exercise more and start to introduce more food.
So this is her book. It gives you a good idea about histamine intolerance and what to do about it. However, her recipes, they are very, very high in oxalates. So don't do those. If you have an oxalate issue, don't do them. For me, it's simple. I'm a carnivore, so I try to not store the meat for too long in the fridge, and I don't cook it for too long, so I don't do bone broth anymore. So I hope this was helpful. And for me, knowing that I have a histamine intolerance, it was a true eye-opener. Now I finally know what to do about the migraines.